We are picking up some reports from TASNIM news agency which says that US-Iran talks have now entered what officials describe as the expert phase, with technical teams from both sides meeting at the Serena Hotel in Islamabad, Pakistan, enclosed in the red zone. And the report says specialized members of Iranian delegation have joined the negotiations, signaling a more detailed and a serious stage of discussions. At the same time, developments in the Strait of Hormuz have also added to the tension. As reported by TASNIM news agency, a US destroyer turned back after what Iran described as a firm warning. Iranian officials claimed the warship was told it could be targeted if it approached the strategic waterway, and that such a move could also impact ongoing negotiations. Iranian authorities further stated that the situation was handled through close coordination between their military and diplomatic channels, with mediation efforts involving Pakistan helping to prevent the escalation. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has made strong claims on social media, criticizing media coverage and asserting that Iran has suffered major military setbacks. And to help us understand what really is happening in Islamabad, we have Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former Indian diplomat, Major General Sudhakar G, defense expert, Vaibhav Malu, trade and energy expert, and also managing director of Enzo Group, Adit Kothari, geopolitics and foreign affairs expert, and we also have Zulkarnain Tahir, political correspondent of Dawn newspaper. Firstly, Zulkarnain, what's really happening in Islamabad? Help us with the latest that's unfolding. In fact, before we get a word in from Zulkarnain Tahir, who is joining us live from Islamabad, we also have Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. Ambassador, a very good evening to you. How do you look at the expert phase of talks that have now progressed?
Well, thanks for having me on your show. This is a very important meeting that is taking place. And although it is not a direct meeting between the US and Iran and their delegations which are there, but it is through Pakistan that the talks are going on. Nonetheless, the subject matter is so important and so crucial that all eyes are on this meeting. Now, the relationship between the United States and Iran is so strained that one can't expect that the delegations of these two countries would sit across the table from one another and talk. That's inconceivable. And that is why these talks are taking place through Pakistan. But Pakistan can't be said to be mediating, because mediating would imply putting content into it or trying to persuade one side to accept the proposal of the other side. I think Pakistan is only acting like a messenger boy. It's conveying the suggestions or the proposals from one side and the counter proposals from the other side. But nonetheless, things are very difficult. The two sides are so far apart that one can't really expect any breakthrough. I think what best can be expected is that the two sides agree to continue the discussions, because to expect that there will be a meaningful breakthrough on all the points which form the basis of the discussions is going to be very, very difficult. Now, let me mention that Iran's 10-point proposal has several issues.
Sorry to interrupt you here, but we are picking up a crucial piece of breaking news, and I will come back to you for your expert analysis on this, because we are hearing from sources, as per Al Jazeera, that there has been some progress made on basic conditions, including on the need for a ceasefire in Lebanon. While there has not been an agreement on a ceasefire, we are hearing some reporting that there has been an argument that I beg your pardon, that there will be a limiting of strikes to the southern part of Lebanon, and that is at least some movement on that front. Ambassador Dayal, sir, please explain what this means, that there is a partial understanding as far as limiting the strikes are concerned on southern Lebanon.
Now, I don't think the partial agreement is going to be acceptable to Iran, simply because the Hezbollah has already suffered a lot of damage. There has been a huge amount of damage caused in Lebanon, and the Iranians are insisting that there should be a total stoppage. And they have said that any ceasefire or any agreement that is to be thought of should cover all sections of the region, including, of course, Lebanon. So even if the Israelis try to send a message across that they are limiting the strikes, etc., I don't think that is going to be acceptable at all to the Iranians, who want a total stoppage of the attacks on Hezbollah.
That's right, and Hezbollah is very, very important for Iran, and that's why they want Lebanon to be part of the ceasefire. But Major General Sudhakarji, what's really happening in the Strait of Hormuz? Because on one hand, you have Donald Trump saying that we have started the process of clearing the Strait of Hormuz, and he has also said that all those mine-laying boats are resting at the bottom of the sea. And meanwhile, TASNIM news agency has reported that an and a US destroyer warship has now been forced to push back.
Yeah, Deepak, I hope I got your name right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for inviting me for your show. And my greetings to all the distinguished co-panelists. I just want to make very quick ballpark points before I respond to your query. Firstly, Iran has stood out. It has emerged as a regional power. It's no longer a pushover that was perceived by USA and Israel. Whether they accept it or not, in the heart of their hearts, they know that Iran cannot be treated as a pushover. They have to prepare and not underestimate the way they came in this time. Number two, 40 days of conflict, Iran has had massive losses and devastation. I would say large destruction of civilian assets. A lot of civilians have died. And Iran is right in its own way to claim the reparation for the losses of lives as also the losses of properties and the assets. And thus it forms one of the components of the 10-point proposal. Third and most important thing is, although this was not existing in anywhere, in any objective, whether political, military, although they came in without any objective, Americans and the Israelis, thinking that it would be something akin to a Venezuelan operation, but they got a nightmarish uh, kind of a response retaliation from Iran. It has shocked not only Americans and Israelis, but the world over. All specialists and the students of military science, they would do well to take every lesson that Iran has taught in past 40 days. How have they gone about? It is a classic study to be studied. Okay. Last, now coming to the Strait of Hormuz, the point that I was trying to, which you have alluded, this is a new objective which has come about, which Donald Trump nor the Israelis were prepared for. But the Iranians, they knew in the heart of their hearts from the previous 12 days conflict of 2025, they knew if push come to shove, then this is going to be a button which can be weaponized, a button of geography, a geography which is discounted by the UNCLOS 1982, that it cannot be taken over by adjoining state which enjoys shares the coastal border with the international water. Iran has done what everyone was perceiving. It is a possible or potential geography piece of ground which could be weaponized by Iran, but nobody expected that it would be done in such a manner. And by doing so, Iran has conveyed two very important messages: that Iran has got something which is yet to show. The hands of Iran has not been shown. Number one. Number two, it is being supported. It is not alone Iran. Iran alone, like Pakistan, cannot launch something like Pahalgam alone. There is somebody, some hidden force behind. So the hidden forces supporting Iran are China, whether you accept it or not. I have been actually shouting from the rooftop since ages that China has supported by military hardware, by communication system, encrypted communication, by satellite system, Baidu systems, and they have something like network-centric communication and also employment of the armed forces and the warlike stores. And more than that, Russia has openly admitted that they not only are strategic partners, they have been supporting Iran, they are supporting now, and they will continue to support. Openly, they have said. So these two facts should have given, not red herrings, red lines in the minds of Donald Trump and all the interlocutors or all the advisors of Americans if they have not factored in. More than that, there are two important things which have been ignored. There is a railway line connecting, this is for the nth time, I'm making this point time and again, it has got very significant implication. There is a railway line connecting Tehran with Beijing, distance 10,400 kilometers, through the Central Asian Republic, and it got commercialized in the year 2022, some sources say, but actually it got commercialized from 2024. And it takes around 10 to 14 days to traverse this distance. They have carried out transportation of multiple kinds of products, military hardware, as also import and export of their necessary products. Why am I stressing this is that they have been able to find a critical solution to the Malacca dilemma. So to save on time, I'll switch over to the next point. Next point is, we all know about the CPEC, which is connecting the Kashgar from China to Gwadar. Nobody has spoken about or has ever applied himself or herself that the CPEC has also got an extension of the existing network of roads connecting across Afghanistan and then entering Iran. There are more than 50 convoys, large convoys, military convoys or civilian convoys, which have actually connected out, traversed this distance across Pakistan and Afghanistan into Iran in past 1 year alone. The figures may be disputed, may be contested, but there is something. Where there is smoke, there is fire, and vice versa. There
That's
is
right.
a transportation system which has been transporting a military hardware for past several days, at least for 1 year, and supplying this military hardware.
Thakurji, there have been reports also that during the ceasefire period, China is actively, allegedly supplying manpads to Iran. But now let's shift our focus to more breaking news coming in. US has revoked the green cards of more Iranian-born relatives of current and former Iran officials, and the Trump administration has revoked the green cards of more long-term Iranian residents of the US who are related to current or former senior Iranian officials. And the State Department has said that it had taken action against Syed Aisa Hashemi, a Los Angeles area psychology teacher, his wife and son, all of whom were Iranian-born lawful permanent residents of the US. The department said in a statement released as talks to end the war with Iran were getting underway in Pakistan. Adit Kotari, this is, visa pressure that, Donald Trump is exerting on existing Iranian citizens in Washington, D.C. This is another pressure tactics that Donald Trump is using. How do you look at this?
Look, if anybody's read Donald Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, it was written way back in 1987, but, his second-term presidency seems to be, applying all of the measures which were sort of outlined in that particular book. So this is just, one of those arsenals that he's using at this point, visa tactics, visa pressure tactics. It's just a sort of a soft pressure that he's trying to apply for the Iranians and for the Iranian governments and, government officials to put pressure on their kins, who are in the ruling government to, sort of start looking at it from a broader perspective. I live in London. Not very far away from where I live is Mustafa Kamini's $55 million house. I mean, you just have to look at the size of the house. It's surprising that, all of these properties which this gentleman holds in the West are not coming into contention at this point, where the Western governments are not using those financial measures to actually provide, exert pressure on the current ruling establishment in Iran. But having said that, just pivoting back to the conversation of where we were talking about Pakistan, I think Ambassador Dayal made a very potent point that Pakistan is not actually mediating the talks because they do not have the heft to actually mediate the talks. What they are doing is providing a very smooth and a good ground for facilitating the talks. Remember, this is the first time in 47 years that somebody senior most from the US Parliament has actually come face to face with the Iranian dispensation. This has not happened for the last 47 years. So that ground seems to be provided by the Pakistanis. As a consequence, now the Pakistanis are also finding themselves globally relevant. So they found themselves geopolitically relevant, and as a consequence, they are also being able to buy domestic legitimacy as a consequence of this global hegemony that they've now suddenly found. So now even the most ardent Imran Khan supporter, the most ardent PTI supporter, is also endorsing Asim Munir and Shehbaz Sharif today. So that's the kind of situation that we have in Pakistan, which is to their advantage. So let's give them credit where is due. Where this talk goes from a future perspective, if this fails, I think we will go back to status quo. And the chances seem to be a lot more of this failing, primarily because Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are basically representatives of Israel in these talks. And when the Iranian the dispensation sent across all of these people into Pakistan, I think the numbers are anywhere between 71 to 86. Different agencies have been reporting different numbers. Their first concern was that it should be an America first talk and not an Israel first talk. And going by the previous precedents of what we have, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are not going to let Israel feel insulated from these peace talks. So Israel's interests will be well represented from that perspective, which is not in Iran's interest, because Iran wants to see Lebanon free from Israel's clutches. They want to ensure that their patrons, or their sort of minions, I would say, in Lebanon, the Hezbollah is completely freed from the clutches of Israel. So, which is why there are more chances. Although the initial first day has been slightly productive from the news reports that we see, it's too early to tell at this point. I think we will have to wait for the foreseeable few hours to see where these talks are basically leading us. Deepak.
Right. Zulkarnain and Tahir, let me bring you in here. The first round of the expert level talks hinges on a ceasefire in Lebanon, to bring Lebanon also within the framework of the ceasefire. But they're saying that there could be a partial, ceasefire. But how does Pakistan view this? Partial progress or unfinished business? Tahir, if you could hear me.
I think a bit of internet issue is here.
Right. Tahir, if you could hear me, I was asking you about Lebanon. So, the expert level of talks have now first put their entire focus on Lebanon, to include Lebanon in the ceasefire. But Al Jazeera reports are also saying that there could be a partial, success and a limited stop on strikes. How does Pakistan look at this?
As I heard you, because of poor international, that connection is here. But as I understood your question, that is about Lebanon, whether that be part of that initial talks between US and Iranian, would that Lebanon thing feature in it? So no, there would be the direct talks between Iran and US in Islamabad, just after delegations meeting with the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif here. But the total 10-point framework that is all about Iran and US contention, that would be worked out over here. But of course, maybe at in the later round of talks, the non factor may feature in, but initially may not.
Right. And Vaibhav Malu, how do markets interpret no agreement but some restraint, stability or continued volatility? How is the markets reacting?
I think it's going to be taking some time. I think tonight is crucial. Tomorrow, day after, let's observe and see what transpires in the peace talks. With the Iranian government and US government face to face in Pakistan, Islamabad, I think it's a great blessing for a country which has it's like an oasis in a desert for them diplomatically, and one can only be happy that our neighborhood is getting better and better. But it's Pakistan is on the map, and we have to correct them and the course of action. They have a lot in common with Iran in the sense that they have been accused of terror, both the countries, and let's hope peace transpires and the markets pick up from there. From here onwards, once we have news, the Strait of Hormuz is going to be opened again, and the energy crisis at hand is going to be ending. We will see the reaction in the markets immediately after that. And once there's more peace and more withdrawal of troops, a ceasefire and permanent ceasefire and an agreement reached, wherein both sides could ask for nuclear stand down of Iran and maybe no dual government versus democracy, whatever it is, unfreezing Qatari money, whatever they negotiate. If it's the end of it, if it's the full and final resolution of the matter, I think we are going to see a great economy in West Asia and globally markets will definitely soar.
But Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, we are getting some source-based information that delegations will be there in Islamabad for a day, but that lower-level talks on the delegate level, where conditions from experts will be finalized, will continue. The Iranian side has multiple expert-level committees that are there in Islamabad as we speak, and as the trilateral, discussions unfold. What is the timeline that we are looking at, Ambassador?
Well, I can't say what is the timeline that is being looked at, simply because of the fact that there are so many issues which have to be resolved and which appear to be intractable at the moment. The Iranian 10-point plan is not acceptable at all to the Americans, and likewise the American 15-point plan was rejected by the Iranians. So now the question is how to bridge the gaps, how to bring the points of view of these two opposite sides closer together, so there is some sort of movement in regard to the issues. I'm happy to hear that there are possibilities of the expert level talks continuing, because it was generally felt that the high level segment would not continue beyond today. I heard a lot of reports that Vice President Vance will go back. He would not spend the night in Islamabad for various reasons, but particularly on account of security-related issues. So even if he goes away, and if there are expert-level talks which go on involving not top officials, but mid-level officials, then still there is a possibility of some sort of forward movement. But as we all agree, the issues are very, very difficult to resolve. And I think that the Pakistanis, well, they're trying to get the two sides to sit together and talk, but they have a huge challenge ahead of them.
That's right. And Adit Kothari, can a partial understanding on Lebanon, which is the main focal point in the initial phase of the expert level talks, can that, really bring about a ceasefire, or does it normalize such prolonged conflicts?
No, so the ceasefire is holding between Iran and the United States. Barring a few skirmishes here and there have been no escalations, no power plants have been hit so far, no bridges have been hit. But when it comes down to South Lebanon, I think Netanyahu has drawn a clear red line on that. And in fact, from the moment the Pakistani PM announced this particular peace initiative, the biggest attack in South Lebanon was seen within 24 hours of that announcement. And that goes to demonstrate that is a clear sort of red line. The only red line that Netanyahu has not crossed is attacking Beirut. But even this morning, South Lebanon, areas within South Lebanon were being absolutely bombarded to the hilt. They've been left rubble. In fact, I have a friend in South Lebanon. I was speaking to him this morning, and he said, that they were asked to basically vacate their properties and move into Beirut. So South Lebanon is completely under fire from the Israelis, and they are not going to allow that to go away straight away. But, Deepak, one of the contentions that I think all of us need to agree, that there are four stakeholders in this particular conflict. And, leaving Iran, militarily degraded, but strategically bolstered, because now they command control over the Strait of Hormuz. They are exerting pressure on the GCC countries. They're even asking that, whatever ships past the Strait of Hormuz, they want to know what contents they are carrying into which region. So that's the kind of checks and balances that the Iranians are now demanding for. Is that going to be acceptable to the GCC countries? I don't see that being acceptable to the GCC countries. So I think, while the US is desperate to get out, we shouldn't forget that the GCC countries also have their interest, and the Israelis also have their interest. One which is, a strategically bolstered, exerting Iran on the Middle East and West Asia, and a strategically bolstered Iran, which will eventually have the power to continue providing patronage to Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis. So that is what I think, all need to watch very carefully, Deepak.
But Major General, I want closing comments from you, Sudhakar ji. Sir, don't you think that the Strait of Hormuz is a bigger concern than Lebanon in this geopolitical scenario? General, if you could unmute yourself.
Absolutely, goes without saying, Deepak. It is definitely much more important and relevant than Lebanon. But Iranians would do well to actually club issues. Why? It has to be understood. The Lebanese problem, I'm sure the audience will be aware that there is a ceasefire already in existence from 27th November 2024 between Israel and the Hezbollah. It's a different issue that the ceasefire is being violated. Now, why is Israel trying to bombard and go absolutely, showing signs of going berserk into Lebanese territory? It is basically they are giving a loud message that you please disarm. They are supposed to, as per one of the steps of the ceasefire, the Hezbollah was supposed to have disarmed themselves, but they are refusing. They have refused to disarm. So it is a clear-cut message that either you do this or you face this.
Right, and this is a very, very dangerous, flashpoint, putting Lebanon over Hormuz Strait, because global economies are affected, and Iran must take this into consideration. But we have a lot to talk about, but very little time, and it's time for us to, conclude this show. But thank you, panelists, for joining me live on this broadcast.